Well, hello, and welcome to the MilVet Podcast. Your podcast hosts are Brendan Aronson, Tim Shaw, and Beau Higgins. We are military veterans, entrepreneurs, and investors. But most importantly, we strive to empower military service members, veterans, and their families. We believe that all veterans deserve a career that fires them up, a career in which you can learn, you can earn, and you can build a world class network. On this podcast, we interview civilian and military veteran leaders who are incredible founders, writers, thinkers, and investors. My primary goal is to inspire you to achieve great things. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the MilVet Podcast. I am your host, Beau Higgins, and I have the pleasure today to be joined by John Price, and we'll get into his background and career and transitions in a minute. For those that may not be familiar with the MilVet or checking out our podcast the first time, the MilVet basically is a company that provides an executive pathway for veterans that are interested in getting into the private equity venture capital founder space. So if that is something you're interested in, I encourage you to check out themilvet.org, sign up for our newsletters, listen to our podcasts, come to some of our events. You can see all that on our website, milvet.org. But today we have the pleasure to be joined by John Price. And John, welcome to the show, and we'd love to hear about what you're doing these days, man.
Very happy to be here. First off, really appreciate the invite to the podcast. And I, as a transitioning veteran, 10, 15 years ago, really appreciate the work that you all were doing. I wish you were around 10 or 15 years ago. So I could send you my resume. But I run a market intelligence company. It's a SaaS platform powered by AI diligence, predominantly in the government space. What does that mean for our private equity customers and a lot of our portfolio company customers? They use the platform to understand how to go to market, where to go, how to win, and then to diligence deals.
Love it, man. Well, I'm looking forward to digging into that some more. But before we get to there, let's throw it back to the beginning. How did this all start for you? I'd love to hear kind of your story of what was the motivation for you to join the military and kind of how that all happened for you.
Sure. I think I was a selfish snowboarder from Colorado at the University of Colorado. So very much thought the world revolved around me. Probably like a lot of people, my life changed on September 11th. My dad, grandfather, and a lot of my uncles had all worked on Wall Street. My dad grew up working in the World Trade Center. And although he wasn't there on September 11th, we did unfortunately lose some family friends. So had decided to get involved. Did some research. I had some friends that were already in the Army. Otherwise, I think I probably would have ended up like a Marine, like yourself.
Motivate. So you picked the Army after 9/11, which is a great reason to sign up for it. And did you know what you wanted to do? I assume, as many or most at that time, you want to get right into the fight right away. Was that your plan or your goal?
I did. I was a history and economics student, so I had studied a lot about Rangers, Green Berets, and SEALs, mostly in the Vietnam War. And like I had mentioned before, I had a few friends at West Point or at a couple other military academies, and had read about the Army going back to a philosophy that they had during Vietnam, where they were going to allow college graduates to come in and try out and make it through the training of a special forces soldier. So didn't guarantee anything. The program only allowed you a chance to try out. I thought, is that the hardest thing I can do, or one of the more challenging things I can do? Love to, find out what I'm made of as a 22-year-old that probably knew everything about the world at the time, until you find out that you don't know anything. And so signed the paperwork to try out to become a special forces soldier. I think the interesting thing to me was the program was called the 18 X-ray program, and I almost signed up to be an X-ray technician just because the program was so early, and I think I was part of the first or second class that it was not well known or well understood by recruiters at the time.
That's pretty funny. That would have definitely set your life in a different trajectory if you'd
Yeah,
gone to be an X-ray technician,
X-ray
like
technician.
an 18 X-ray. Does that program still exist? I didn't even know that was a thing. To be candid, I mean, I figured I would know something like that. But that program still around?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure if the standards have changed or not, but I think one of the things that I liked about the program was you had to be a college graduate or have completed a certain amount of hours, and so we got everybody from the snowboarder from Colorado to guys that had left Wall Street, um, to folks who um, like had gone out, worked in businesses, been engineers, and just felt moved to come and try out for the program. So it was a really great group. I think it was a unique group. My roommate was from Alabama, was a college football player, had gone to Auburn, and very much like me, walked out of class on September 12th and went to enlist. So it was a great group of people, and I consider myself extremely fortunate.
That is super cool, and I can only imagine that because of the patriotism out there, you got some candidates you might not ordinarily get into the program. Obviously,
Yeah.
it really definitely attracted some of the best. That's super cool. That's super cool. Well, obviously, you made it through all of that, which is great, and it worked out for you. But maybe share some highlights of your time in the military, because I believe certainly, you're from talking to a lot of folks on the program. Your time in the military just kind of sets that baseline of success for you in the future. But we'd love to hear some of your highlights and kind of what you took from making it through those crucible events in the military, and how those things in the military maybe translated into the future. But yeah, talk about some of the highlights of your time.
I think a lot of the highlights, for the most part, revolve around the people, and not to jump too far ahead in the story, but I think that's a lot of the challenge of the transition. So I was around some of the most high quality people I think I'd probably ever be around in my life. I think from a challenge standpoint, the different schools that you get to go to on the Army side as a Ranger or Green Beret are always interesting. Like I was lucky enough to go to things like scuba school, where we turn drowning into an art form. Um, it's not about swimming; it's all about holding your breath. And I think probably my my most interesting story was at least about training in special forces. It's about walking far with heavy stuff at night with a compass. So if you're a founder or working in private equity, I think a lot of times it's about discipline and continuing to plod forward, even when it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And so when you're out at night in the rain with a compass and a map, are you going to continue to do the right thing? Just like if you're, buying a company or working on a financial decision. And I had stumbled across this individual who I never saw again. Not sure what happened to him. He could have been swallowed up by the training area. But he came up and said, "Hey, I'm so excited to have met someone. Oh my gosh, you'll never believe it, but my compasses are both broken." And I was like, "Wow, that's crazy." And he said, "Well, I'm trying to go north, and my compasses are both pointed this way, but I know north is over here." And so I pulled my compass out and told him, I think your compasses are right. You're probably just confused." And he swore to me um, that no, north is over here. Continued walking. I never saw him again. But I always took it as a learning lesson of for life in business or in the military. Like sometimes it's just a good idea to stop and take a deep breath and kind of look around and gather yourself, and make sure that you're aware of everything that's going on around you, versus very much trying to look through a straw. There's a book by uh, former commander. His name's Pete Blabber, and he calls this getting treed by a chihuahua. right? So like you think there's a bear out there, you run up a tree, but it's really a small dog. So
No, those lessons learned that you talk about there that translate over are things I hear repeated a lot. It's first about the people, the team. Whether you're in the military or you're in the private equity venture capital space, the team is just essential to have the right people on that team. And then it's the grit piece of it, right? Being able to just grind your way through really hard times. And I think that's part of what the deal is being in the military, and if you can do it there, you can translate that over to grinding through the long hours and the jumping out there on your own. I think in the private sector as well. But I love that analogy of, looking at it, trying to find the forest from the trees, right? And get some perspective on
yeah,
things,
yeah.
and trying to figure it out.
I think the very much similar to the Marine Corps. Not to be too crass, but like the concept of you're out there in the rain and you're cold, and most folks, I think, would find that absurd. Combat soldiers, for the most part, say things like, "No, make it suck more," and when your back is up against the wall and you're working on some of these deals, or it's actual high stakes where there are millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, to say nothing about billions of dollars at stake. I do think it takes that kind of mentality to push through. Maybe you've been working on something for 18, 20 hours a day, because that's what it requires to complete whatever the mission happens to be. And for me, that's what, like, my team, a lot of them are veterans, and I find that that's what makes it really enjoyable about the people that I get to work with, because they share that similar mentality of, we're going to push through and do what we need to do to accomplish what we need to. Now, that has limits. We're all getting up there in years, and we can't, just continue to do that for months on end. But I love working with veterans or higher veterans, because if it will take us till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to finish the job, that's what they're going to do. And they get it.
No, I love that. And it's the intangibles, right? That you can't put that on a piece of paper. It didn't come through on a resume. That's just the intangibles that veterans bring to the table. And I love that for sure. Well, you obviously had a great run, made it through the military. At some point, you did 10 years. Is that right? 10 years that you stayed
Yep.
in 10 years? Yeah. I mean, what was the decision point for you to get out? Was it good, bad? You decided you had enough of being in the rain and, and
Um,
what was your thought process of moving forward from the military?
Probably two things. One, I had never really planned on it as a career. I cared about my country, my home. I cared deeply about Colorado, the state that I'm from. And so for me, I never really saw it as a long term career. And then you can't tell just because I'm sitting down. But I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I think I'm like 6 foot on a good day. Probably not really. And maybe like 175 or 80 pounds. And if you're running around, everywhere from Northern Africa to the Middle East to places like Afghanistan, you accrue injuries, and I just started to accrue too many injuries to where I couldn't keep up with my friends. You build extremely close relationships with your friends and your teammates, and I would somewhat compare it akin to maybe an NFL football player or college football player who, if you start getting hurt and you can't perform at a top level, then you need to be adult enough to take a step back and say, if I can't keep up with everyone and perform the core mission, then it might be time for me to move on to the next phase of my life.
No, I think that's. I mean, it's a young man's game for sure, and the miles and the jumps and the pounding take its toll for sure. But when you made that call, did you feel you felt good about it? Obviously, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you have a plan? At some point, when were you like thinking about the what next, or was it like, okay, I got my D214, I'm going to figure it out from here? What was your transition like?
It was not smooth. Um, I look back at it and just shake my head now for a wide variety of reasons. I talked to a psychologist once, and they told me, most people have two extremely stressful events in their life, but military folks have three extremely stressful events in their life, and those are getting married, which is one that everybody that a lot of folks deal with, dying, obviously very stressful, um, and getting out of the military. And what I wish my older self could have gone back and told my younger self to do was just do what they trained you to do. You don't do a jump without a plan, right? Or a dive or a raid or whatever your job happened to be in the military. We don't do it without a plan, situation, mission, execution, that rubric that is extremely effective. How can you not live your life without a plan? And much like Eisenhower said during World War II, that the act of planning is the important thing, not necessarily the plan. The plan can change, and so I would encourage any veteran. And when I go back to North Carolina and talk to my friends who are 20, 25-year soldiers who are leaving their units, my advice to them is sit down and take the time out over a couple weeks or a month to just think about, where do I want to be and what does success mean? You're the mission now. So what does mission success mean? And I think that's really helpful. I wish I would have done that. Um, I think I'm really happy with where my life ended up. I don't think I made it easy on myself all the time. But it's already a stressful transition, and you can make it less stressful by sitting down and saying, this is what I want my life to be, these are the things that I'm interested in, this is what I define success as. Having your life plan, and just going out and executing it, which is like whether you're a soldier, sailor, marine, airman, guardian, right? Like that's the space force, right? Like that's what you've been trained to do. It's really effective. And so just go out and execute your plan.
Yeah, easier said than done for sure. Especially if you're only done been 5 years or 10 years in, or a younger guy, and a lot of guys just want to be done with it and like
Yeah.
forget about it all. Then it's all of a sudden, man, I should have listened to the guys that were telling me to make a plan, But it's hard sometimes to get that in your head when you're in that phase. But obviously, with or without a plan, and it sounds like not much of a plan, maybe a plan on a napkin, you figured it out. And I always say, one of the most important things in transition, and you talk to it somewhat, is not only figuring out what you do want to do, it's figuring out what you don't want to do. And the only way you can do that is talk to people and network. And I think there is oftentimes this negative connotation of networking for military guys. I think it's like there's something untowards about it, or it's like cheesy. Like, well, what do you think you got things done in the military by? You had a network of people. You knew the
Yeah.
guy over the armory. You knew the guy at the, that could get you the vehicles. You knew the guy that get you good MREs, right? That's networking, man. But somehow it doesn't. It's people feel like, I'm just gonna do it on my own, and you don't have to do it on your own. Obviously, when you transition out, I think a lot of people feel that they can't ask for help and they have to do it on their own, and they don't have a plan. And they get lost in that. But I mean, what did you like? What was able to kind of help you through that difficult phase, and maybe not planning it far enough in advance? Talk about what that looked like for you, because obviously you've been quite successful, maybe in spite of yourself. But what did that initial start look like, and then how did you get from and how that kind of continue the process of your growth?
Sure. I think two things. So I'm extremely blessed to have friends from Boulder, Colorado, which is where I went to school and grew up in the surrounding area, who had come to DC and started businesses and knew nothing, for the most part, about the military. So everything from how to conduct a business meeting, how to write an email, um, yeah, just the average norms that maybe I had not developed, because like I had a job that was very niche, always around a certain type of people. That's very much an outlier experience for the business world. And then I, as a contractor for a shadowy organization, I was lucky enough to run into a reserve officer, and they had told me like, "Oh, hey, at Georgetown and George Washington, like they have these programs where you can go get your MBA, but they'll give and take, since they understand that you have a job, and so you should think about it and take a look at it." And I think the challenge for me was understanding, and maybe an insecurity of, well, hey, am I really competitive? Am I the kind of person that they would want? And uh, I think looking back on it, probably an education issue of like, look, take time out, do the GMAT and the GRE, and make people say no. Apply to the top 10 or 15, business schools, and you never know what can happen. And like I, that's the great thing I love about like service to school and the MilVet is that mentorship and passing that message along. It seems obvious, like in hindsight, it seems obvious. I didn't know to do it. I think your stresses and insecurities can sometimes get the best of you, and I just wanted to get a job. Like I was ecstatic when someone was going to pay me for something other than a soldier. um, and so like that started a really wonderful journey for me. I had exposure to a lot of really great and smart people who encouraged me to pursue education and get more involved on the business side.
Yeah, I think a lot of veterans certainly have that some sense of imposter syndrome. Like, well, I can't compete with those guys. They're smarter than me. They've done, and they're not. I mean, there's other dudes. They've had different experiences than you. You actually bring a lot to the table that they don't have, which is really actually more valuable in a lot of ways. But it is a mindset shift to kind of, yeah, I belong in the classroom. I belong there with these guys, and certainly overcome that challenge. But as you also alluded to, I mean, there's so much goodness to have those mentors out there that can say, "Hey, look, you can do this. I did it. I'm a knucklehead. You're going to be great, man." There's someone to push you and someone to give you that, motivation to kind of get out of your own way and give it a shot and jump in. And obviously, you were able to do that. And talk about how that works. Obviously, you went back, got your MBA, and that launched a new the next phase of your career, which was somewhat traditional for a little while and has gotten more into the PE space later on. But talk about a little bit of your early career and maybe what that was like starting off and kind of where.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was great. I got hired as a junior executive at a Fortune 500 company. Like taught me how a business worked. Um, really, I got to fly all around the country. So my normal day was, or my normal week was, I would get up, fly to Minnesota, then I would fly to California, and then I would fly home. I would do that 3 weeks out of 4 weeks. So really interesting. Got to immediately apply things that I had learned in business school, and then I think anyone that goes to business school can tell you they teach you probably about 10% of what you need to know. So learned the other 90%. And I was also lucky enough and afforded to have an executive coach, which was great for me. Um, there were a lot of I think personality challenges I think that I was responsible for as a young leader. Probably not a very uh, popular opinion, but I think particularly in soft, we are spoiled with first round draft picks. It's not very hard to lead people that don't need to be led. They kind of just wake up and do what they're supposed to do. Um, and so if you think you're a great leader and maybe you're not, you got to look in the mirror and say, hey, what are the things that I need to get better at? And just understanding the focus and the mind set shift that needs to take place of we're not on a battlefield anymore. This is not life or death. You know, it's okay if people talk about their weekend and aren't 10 minutes early for the meeting. And someone, we don't need to have a meltdown because somebody didn't, remember a pen or pencil. Um, some early struggles that I think, a lot of it was because of me, candidly, and just like we're all products of our experiences. So I took some really great things out of my experience, and you probably have some things in your experience that are not directly applicable to the business world, but we really want to try and stovepipe them in there. And so for me it was taking accountability, really saying, hey, just like when I was in the army, I want to be the best at this. And so what is it going to take in order for me to do that? And understanding, give yourself a little bit of grace. You're going to screw some stuff up. Just keep at it. It's what makes a transition difficult, I think. But once you come out the other side, I think it, in particular, probably for, I'll put us both in kind of the same, generation of military folks. You fought for a reason, and you should enjoy the fact that you made it through those experiences and enjoy your life, not try and make it more difficult.
No, I think that's some great advice, and I love the fact that you were open to or were able to have an executive coach. I don't think enough people tap into those resources or look inside themselves to realize, I mean, think of yourself. Yeah, I'm obviously a good leader. I've been in the military, but your points I think are spot on about you can always continue to improve and learn from others. And again, I talk about leadership as adding tools to your tool chest, right? You have a couple tools maybe when you start off and it's a hammer and a screwdriver, but over time, like, okay, I need a wrench for this one and I need this tool for that one. And, how do you build those tools in the tools chest to be able to use them in the right situation with the right people who might need a different kind of motivation, vice a knife hand, they need something else. So I think that's part of it, to realize that, okay, I can't just hammer at these people. A different way to be influential and be successful is to just grow that leadership tool set, again, you have a good baseline of it, but it's certainly not, the toolbox ain't full, and being able to work on that, I think, is great advice for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think organizationally, I mean, I spent some time working for private equity and venture capital groups, fixing portfolio companies or designing their strategies. And early on in my career, I think the one major mistake I made was, I'm going to come in and fix this culture. This 150-year-old publicly traded company, I'm going to bend it to my will and I'm going to change the culture. You're laughing because it's a ridiculous assertion, right? So, um, like for me, leadership, in unless you're running the organization, if you're getting out of the military and you're going to go work in an organization, is understanding the culture, understanding that they have probably been successful, which is why you're there, and there are reasons the culture works the way that it does, and understanding the things that may be incompatible with the military culture experience and where you're currently at, and understanding that you're probably better off trying to understand that culture and conform to certain parts of it versus what I tried to do, which was bending the universe to my will. It's not going to work out very well, especially if you're doing things like change management or fixing organizations.
No, I think that's some great advice, and I certainly saw that firsthand at Amazon. Amazon was a place where a lot of veterans came to work during my 7 years there. Some of the veterans that came thought they could, they wanted to change Amazon's culture. I'm like, dude, Amazon's doing just fine without you. They're going to be okay. You better figure out. I mean, we're
Have
intentionally,
you seen the market cap?
yeah, we're doing okay.
It's good.
I mean, and they're peculiar and it's a little weird and it's not like the military, but you need to adapt to that. It's not going to adapt to you. If you can't adapt, you're not going to be there for long because they've figured out their quirks and it works for them, and I think that's a great point of trying to and not, you can't bend a company, especially when it's been around for that long. It's not going to happen. But I think that's a great point. But how did you at some point, obviously you made a pivot from more traditional Fortune 500 type companies into the private equity and VC space. And I'm just curious, it was something that you just kind of said, this corporate thing is fine, but I do want to have more control or want to be my own boss, or what was kind of was there a point in time you kind of, you wanted to pivot out of that?
Kind of a not a great answer, but by accident.
Yeah.
So I was in business school and or had just finished and was working in the Senate. So I was working on AI legislation, which we passed that no one follows. It's probably a different podcast. But I had started working on, I don't want to say acquisition reform because this is 2017 or 18, but just trying to make it easier for companies to understand how to work with the government from a policy level. And I was introduced to folks that had funded these companies or private equity funds that had bought some of these businesses. And I think, um, in particular, the government contracting system, pipeline, total addressable market. It's not like it's taught at Harvard or Wharton or anywhere. So it can be a little difficult to understand. There are a lot of different norms that go along with the market, and I believe it is a market that are very different from the commercial market. And as I was interacting with these folks, they said, "Well, hey, this is great. It seems like you know what you're doing. You can come in and build these strategies and fix these companies for us, right?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course I can do that. How hard could that be, right?" So, um, yeah, it happened organically, and I do also think early in your career, the first job after the military, or maybe the second, 3 or 4 years, it's always good, potentially, to challenge yourself. And so whether that means leaving the institution that you're at, or moving, to continue to try and bridge that knowledge gap, because I believe, and this is why I'm such a big proponent of education, that for some, in some sense, you can sometimes be at a marked disadvantage just because the time you spent in the military is probably not directly applicable to whatever industry you're working in. And so you've got to play catch up. And one of the ways that you can play catch up is by continuing to use your military service, maybe to target different positions that will allow you to really expand that knowledge base and understanding of business and markets, and exactly in this case how uh, private equity funds work, then expected return and IRR. And so that's what I got out of it, is understanding how they viewed the marketplace versus, this is the plan we need to go execute to build a very high valued asset.
That's some great advice, I think, and insight on how just a mindset shift over time when because you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I think that's one of the things, you're not exposed to it, so you have no clue how the real world works. I mean, in the military, your pay shows up every first and 15th of the month. The worst.
Yeah.
The worst Marine and the best Marine are getting paid, and it's like you don't have to worry about a bottom line and a process. It's just you do your job and the paycheck shows up and it's good. But to understand all that, understand investment, understand trying to make money, it's a different world. And I think it's one that is foreign to us a lot of times. Managing a P&L, you don't never manage a P&L in the military, but if you want to be successful in that space, you have to understand that and what that is. I think that's one of the things, that's the education piece. That's the gap you do have to close to be successful. And your point also well made about, timing is everything, right? I mean, I think it often works out that you find these opportunities when you're not necessarily looking for them, they kind of find you. You're working in some space, and just a connection, the network, and it just kind of it happens. When you're out there, working hard and meeting people and talking and exchanging ideas, those opportunities come. You have to be ready for them when they do come. And obviously, you found something. And what was it that lured you away, or what was you talk about that from leaving the Senate to going on to the PE side of the house? Talk about that journey and how that kind of started, and kind of how it's continued.
I love working for my state. I do also think, just philosophically, it's great to have a program, and I think we should encourage more of um, folks to go in and spend a couple years at the policy level of government. Uh, a lot of folks do that are political appointees, and that's great. Uh, my hope is that as our government moves forward, we can expand the programs of whether it's like technical understanding, or like the ability to relay real world experience. Um, that those programs continue to be funded, and ultimately that people, even like yourself, can take time out and say, this is another sacrifice that I'm making for my country, making $35,000 a year. But I'm going to go up and do this because good leaders need good information to make great decisions, right? And so if you have real world experience, I would encourage anyone to take advantage of different programs where you can go work in the Senate or the House or even the executive branch. As to why I left, I wanted to work on AI legislation. I wanted to work on changing the TINA threshold and like some other things that were able to be adjusted as far as policy goes. So I think it just kind of ran its course. I was extremely lucky to work for a person who quote unquote got it and afforded me the latitude to go out and work on the things and make the impact, for him in our state, and I think the industry, more writ large. Uh, and if I were to move positions, uh, and I was not working for this individual, I just didn't see a way forward where I would have that latitude.
Yeah, and you realized you're making a difference. Well, it's funny. I think you obviously signed up on 9/11 because you wanted to give back to the country. You made this run at the Senate. That's giving back, man. So it's certainly a theme of giving back. And I think that's a great takeaway too for all of us to be able to take, if you have the opportunity to go back and do that somewhere in your career and go back in and give back again, because you lose that a little bit when you leave the military, right? You lose that sense of purpose sometimes. Not that you can't find a great team, but there's something about giving back to the country that just, I think, it's why a lot of us join. That's why we join the military. We want to give back, and that's always underlying. And obviously, you found a way to do that again the second time. We then moved on and pivoted back into the PE type space. And what was that? What was the first role you got out of when you were leaving that into the?
So I was asked to go in, help a portfolio company. It was about $120 million a year, 300 employees, a little bit of change management and adjustment, grow the P&L. We did a leadership change. I think my job was just to steady the ship, help maximize the culture, maybe instill some of that soft mindset of, let's go out and win. And then, as with a lot of change management, um, if you're a bored guy, you're really not long for the world for a wide variety of reasons. Um, I, I think that your job is to help steady the company and ultimately uh, build something valuable for the employees and the investors, and that when that's done, uh, much like a storming and norming on a team, it's always good to hand the baton off to someone, that can definitely like take the ship into port, if you will.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. And again, obviously, you're able to apply a lot of your military leadership and the soft world too. Again, just the planning processes probably, and lean it down and make it faster. Get that OODA loop faster, right? Decision cycles, with a lot of this stuff is about. And if you make it faster, and that's all about winning, right? In war or in business, I think that's a takeaway you can definitely apply, and that you were able to bring to that. And that, so you did that for a while. I mean, just kind of walk us through your, again, from there, what did you do, and to get to where you got today? What was that journey like, and to kind of explain some of those steps along the way?
As I was winding that down, I like to talk to people. Perhaps it's because I don't have a life and I spend too much time at home. I'm not sure. But I met a couple of individuals who had a software company and then were raising money for another company. And so they had asked me if I was interested in running a software company. I had always wanted to build my own software company, which is what I'm doing now. And so I looked at it as an opportunity to learn, to understand, really get a bird's eye view all the way down to the nitnoid understanding of how the company worked every day. Our job was to take it to market. That's what we did. And then I was approached by Deloitte, the tax and audit guys, which I think caught most people, at least in my immediate circle, who were my friends, off guard. I think if you grow up on small teams doing unconventional warfare, you're not used to hearing no. Then you're also working in small companies that are 300 people, from an early stage tech company that's 4 guys in a garage to 300 people. Those aren't large organizations. And so to then jump into an extremely large traditional organization to run corporate development was a little bit of a change for me, but one that it was a great opportunity. I was really blessed with the opportunity to do it. When a CEO and a COO of a company that large come and say, we want to get into these markets, we're not entirely sure how to do that. We think you can help us. It's one thing when they actually give you the resources to do it. It's amazing. So really proud of the work that the team did, at the firm, building strategy and buying businesses. We're not, or that firm is not too vocal about what they buy, just because it's a partnership, but really a lot of great work by the team. And yeah, I just can't estimate or reinforce enough that in a large organization like that, the amount of flexibility that they gave me to build my own team and say, okay, smart guy, we hired you. Now what should we do? Or organizationally, I think that's unique, and that's why they're successful. So I'm looking forward to the folks who are still there, who run the team now, to make some really incredible acquisitions and get the firm into some spaces I know they're targeting.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it is. I think that is a unique thing, right? To the beauty of the big companies, they have resources that you're not going to get at a startup or a founder. They're not begging for dollars, right? They're not raising money, and
Yeah,
they're not going to run out of cash, right? But if they will give you the latitude, is the hard part, Amazon, that to have this idea of day one every day, that it's just entrepreneurial. In some ways, in other ways, it was bureaucratic. I mean, the bigger it got, I think the slower companies can get. But to find those little spots where you have that agility still in the big companies is pretty sweet. 'Cause you can find that overlap of, yeah, I got resources and I have leeway. That's pretty sweet. That's pretty
it
sweet.
was it was it was awesome.
Yeah.
And frankly, it I remember my first week thinking this is going to go really well or really poorly, and so unlike the first executive position that I had, I wrote some notes down. And I'm an army guy, so I carry a little book around still. It's not green, but uh, some notes about like not making decisions too quickly, understanding the culture, really making sure that you that like I fit into it, as someone who's an outsider, uh, and leveraging that and using that to my advantage versus coming in and saying, okay, let me tell you how this is
Yeah.
really going to
Yeah.
work, which is not going to be effective. So I think the second time around in an extremely large organization, I was a little smarter, uh, made my life a little easier. And the one thing I tried to apply that I took away from the senator that I worked for was he would tell me all the time, it's a simple concept, but he would say, John, what you're doing is not wrong. It's great. How you're going about it is not going to be effective in the way that you think it is in accomplishing your goal. And so that's what I took to a large organization was, this is what we want to accomplish, but just because of the size of the organization, how we do that is just as important as the goal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's a great takeaway to understand. Seeing that's the culture piece of it, right? Understand the culture, how they work. They're not gonna react to the nice hand or telling them, what you do. They have their processes. You have to play
Yep.
by the rules to some degree at least. So yeah, a great. I mean, that's just like learning. It shows you can learn, right? There you go. So
Yeah. Again, when you go into any organization, the assumption, is that the organization's been somewhat successful, and I think what people have to understand is there's going to be an immediate reaction if folks that come into an organization say, "Hey, we're going to change everything," and
yep.
the immediate reaction that all of us would have is, well, we've been successful for a long time. What would make us, change any of these things or alter any of these things? And so it's just a good thing to think through before you go through that little journey in whatever organization you're in, whether you want to buy a company or you're pitching your fund and you're on a deal, or you're in a portfolio company and charged with not not changes because that's a scary word, but maybe making adjustments. So
Rudder shifts, right?
that's right. Don't use the c word. We don't want to change anything.
So you spent how long did you spend at Deloitte? 3 years? Were you there for?
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, again, different perspective being at a very well resourced company doing some bigger things. But at some point, again, it ran its course, or a different opportunity come up for you to go back to the small side of things, or what was the
Well,
thing there?
I had always wanted to build something. I'm a very strategic person. I think everywhere along my pathway, it may have looked disjointed or unconnected, but it all fed into what I ultimately wanted to build from a software platform standpoint, understanding all these financial and business concepts. And I was hired to build a team, build a strategy, and do deals. And I think again, when you're going to come in and do change management or build something, uh, the person who manages it day to day or scales it up, many times those are different people. Now, I think that you should know your strengths and weaknesses as a person and as an operator, whether that's business or finance, in what you're doing, and you don't want to get out of your depth. And it was time. Like I had a brilliant lieutenant who was ready to take over. Quite frankly, he was a lot better than I was at certain aspects of the job, and so for the organization and for him and the team, and for me, it was a natural handoff of, okay, we've we've done the framework now, which can be difficult. Uh, this person is gonna take the torch and scale it up.
That's great to be able to recognize that and to have a succession plan, so to speak, and to realize like I've taken this thing as far as I can. Well, I've taken it, I've built it, to be able to turn it over to someone and say, okay, I know. But I know my skill set, if someone here that can take this next level, it's great to self-awareness, I think, in some ways too, that you can move into do that stuff. But also knowing you had other dreams and aspirations of your own to start something. So the timing is right in a lot of ways. And talk about you going from big back to small, because that's a pretty big jump in some ways. And yeah, what was that like?
I think anytime you run around with a PowerPoint deck and a dream and are pitching investors, a lot of folks are going to look at you sideways, and they should. That's their job. Um, uh, so again, it's one of these experiences where I don't know if I'm fueled by pain and anguish or what. But if you have a vision, and there's really something that keeps you up at night, which I do, then for me it was, hey, I've done all these things throughout my career. I sort of feel like I can get another job. So why don't I try this? Worst thing that can happen is we can be unsuccessful, which I don't believe will be. But if we assemble the right people, we're not going to quit. Right? And so like drawing on my military experience of understanding, well, like there's so many parallels that I could draw between walking outside at night with the compass in the rain and going around trying to pitch investors. It feels very similar, like bleak at some points, and then the sun comes up, and you see somebody else, and you realize you can be successful. So it's not an easy thing to do. Also, I think joining the United States military isn't an easy thing to do, and so you should draw on those experiences if they really speak to you. And then like we had a plan, and we actually came up with a plan this time and went out and executed, and lo and behold, it's somewhat working out. So, you know, uh, my takeaway was, if you want to do this, you got to be all in and do what you were trained to do. Come up with a plan. Um, I think a lot of people will say, like, hey, there can't be a lot of ego. You're going to hear a lot of no's, a lot of, I don't understand, like all these things. But if you believe in it, and most important part, do your homework, right? Like you need to do your homework, market research, all those things. That's why I'm such a big advocate of, again, education. Um, if I'm an investor or an early stage investor and I'm looking at teams, I think, my personal opinion, that I can look at a bunch of military founders and say, well, I know that, like, for the most part, they're going to have integrity, they're mission driven, and that I can count on them to do these basic things that seem like a small thing because we're all in the military. But when you're out interacting in the business sphere, you find out, really not everyone has those same values, and certainly does not conform to that aesthetic.
No, it's funny just hearing you talk about that, and from your very opening comment of success in the military was about the team and building the team. Again, parallels, success and building the team, having that grit to power through the rainy nights, and with the compass, same thing. A lot of doors are going to close in your face, but I think you also highlight, you have to believe in yourself, right? You've done, by this point, you've obviously accomplished a lot in the military and the civilian sector. So you're taking that leap. You're saying, I believe in my plan. I believe in myself, that I'm not going to get told no for an answer. And but I would ask you, what advice would you offer to people that want to get into that space, into the founder space, that things maybe you would have done differently, or like, what are there a few couple things that are, man, I wish, if I had to do it again, I would have been a lot better off if I had done A, B, or C.
Yeah, yeah. I think right now, with where we're at as a society, as I peruse LinkedIn, seems like a cool moniker that everyone wants to put on their LinkedIn page, and that's great for marketing and all that stuff. Um, but you are picking one of, if not the most difficult paths in life to go through. You are completely betting on yourself and your core team, especially when you're starting off. Uh, um, you can have problems right out of the gate with that core team. Just like we was saying in the military, no plan survives what? First contact,
Mhm.
right? So when
Yep.
you get that first contact as a founding team, maybe it'll survive, maybe it won't. Purely by the numbers. Um, I have a great personal investor in our company. He was also a special forces guy, and smirked and jokingly said to me, statistically, you're probably going to be unsuccessful. So like there has to be an understanding that this is an extremely difficult path, that it's hard but rewarding. I would call it like a ruck march. You're like carrying something heavy for 30 miles and it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere until you say like, oh, there's the finish line and we are actually, gonna be successful. But just like anything else, um, all anything that is worth accomplishing is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. It's probably why it hasn't been accomplished yet. So, I think understanding that it's going to be hard, really, I hate to compare things to basic training, but, you know, when I was in basic training, I think I remember saying, just make it to breakfast, just make it to lunch, just make it to dinner. I think a startup is a sprint and a marathon at the same time. And so you have to adopt that level of philosophy of, we got 1,000 things to do. Don't worry about the 1,000 things. Just start not knocking things down on the list. And when it feels like you're not making headway, you'll turn around in a couple months and realize, wow, we've really accomplished a lot. And to continue to like understand where your north star is, and keep walking towards it as a company. And for us, we're a product company, so knowing what that is, staying true to yourself. And uh my personal opinion, I believe if you build something great and amazing, money is a byproduct. I certainly wouldn't be a founder because I want to make a lot of money. So that is a byproduct of making something really great and impactful. Um, but it's certainly not something where apart from what folks might think, at least in the beginning, where you're going to get rich. You know,
I, I,
it-
I love the sprint and a marathon at the same time analogy. I think it's super apt, and I had not heard that before, but I love it. And I think again, just your analogy of the compass, right? Find your north star, stay on track. You're gonna get you're gonna get hit from a lot of different directions, man, and it's gonna be hard, and doors will be closed in your face, and you're gonna hear a lot of no's, but you
and
know where
trust
you're
your
headed.
compass too, right?
Yeah, sure. Trust your company.
You
Exactly.
can't
So,
be like,
no,
oh,
it
it
wasn't
doesn't.
that way. It says it's this way. Yeah, right. But
I'm
I
like,
mean,
well, I'm not seeing that guy ever again.
yeah,
So,
I mean, and obviously you're going to have to make some core. I'm sure the initial maybe idea or product has changed a little bit. It does over time, right? Things
yeah,
do tweak a little bit because you're getting feedback, and if you're smart, you're going to listen to that feedback and at least evaluate that feedback and try to incorporate that to get to where you're going and get back on that path, whatever that may be. A little bit of azimuth correction here and there may be a good thing once in a while. But yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah.
Pretty good.
I mean, a lot of great conversations that we have are, we're making this product for people. Perhaps we should listen to people,
Yeah,
especially
right.
the people that we're making it for. That's going to help.
Understand your customer. You can't go wrong there. Again, that's another Amazon thing. Keep it simple. Bezos is very good about focused on the customers for sure. Well, talk about. I mean, now like where you're at. Where is 3 years from now for you? What does success look like? And what is that about?
Yeah. So the thesis of the company, like I talked about before, is the government affects markets, right? And there's fragmented data everywhere. And no one really understands how to look at it, read it, use it, leverage it. The the data that we all want to look at and understand is all the same. The workflow might be a little different, and the pieces might be a little different. If I am, you know, Tim Shaw at Context Ventures, and I want to invest in a company that is is going to market in government, or if I'm a company that wants to win contracts in government, or let's say I'm a corporate development guy and I want to buy a company in government, or I'm a Wall Street analyst and I want to understand how to value Anduril as they go to IPO. Believe it or not, the data that all four of those user groups want and need is the same. It revolves all around policy, contract information, contract officers, contract offices, and then requirements. So in 3 years, we would like to standardize the defense market.
Hmm.
That means I don't have to explain to anyone what a PEO means or what the NDAA is because we've stopped talking in acronyms and there's a platform that will just explain it to you. In 3 years, I would love really great investors to invest in amazing businesses and founders, those businesses to get bought, IPO, and create a furnace of technology from dollars all the way to usable products for folks on the other end in the military. And then we do the same thing with federal health and the drug market and industrials. So we want in 3 years everyone to understand what their opportunity is when the government's involved and where to go and how to play and what winning looks like and what winning means.
That is a big one, man. Good luck with that. I think that is a big
And
idea.
we need to work with the government. Normally people laugh at me when I say that. So
I love it. Well, as we get ready to wrap up here, what kind of maybe last words would you share with folks that want to get into this space? You've already shared some great insights on it, but kind of some closing words for those folks that may want to get into this PEVC founder space in general. Kind of what you got for them?
yeah, I think couple things. So you're the mission now. So sit down, plan out your mission, plan out what success means, and go execute your mission. Just do what you've been trained to do. Number one, I think education. Number two, really important. Um, the market thinks it's important and puts an emphasis on it. So whether or not an MBA is important, the market thinks it's important, especially top 10, 15 universities, right? So that's a way when we talk about your military experience can sometimes put you behind. That's a way to shortcut the system or a loophole that's in a system of like, hey, I'm a like the founder of your company. I'm a veteran. I would like to go to Wharton. Like there are programs set up to get veterans into top tier schools, and so take advantage of those things. Uh, and then the last thing is, I would say put in the reps. You know, I feel like there's a thought process out there right now of, well, I did this in the military and I went to this school. So as soon as I graduate from school, I should probably be in charge of something. I wish that was the case. Uh, Believe me, I wish that was the case. But you're better off putting in the reps and understanding, I think, how business and investment, really works and becoming a master of your craft, probably like you did in the military. And that will really set you up for like mid-career or later career being super, successful. And then the last thing is, I think bring the structure to teams that you're on. It's going to be really helpful. Um, be careful about the elements of the military culture that you bring to your team. I loved being in special forces. I loved my teammates. If I ran my company like we ran like 5-3 or triple nickel, I wouldn't have any employees tomorrow. Just be thoughtful and intentional and understand there's some things that are going to work, from my military experience, and some things that I should leave with my military experience.
And that is some great advice, and I hope the folks that are watching it, listen to it, take heed of it, and can use that in their own journeys. Well, hey, John, thank you for the time today. I truly appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to see where you are in 3 years, or hopefully less time than that. And I wish you the best success, and hope our paths cross soon, man. All right, out here.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode. For more content, follow us on Instagram @TheMilitaryVet or on LinkedIn. Join us at an upcoming event or learn more on our website, TheMilVet.org. Feel free to email us directly at leadership@TheMilVet.org. Thank you so much and take care.